everybody. Welcome to City Girls Pod. And this is the show where we talk all things Sex in the City. And we are back with And Just Like That, season 2, episodes 1 and 2. I am film critic Rachel Wagner, and Jax is here.
I am so excited. Yes, because And Just Like That is back, but more so because we're back, baby.
That's right. Yeah, we are going to have a time talking about these episodes. And we just recently got to see each other at Christmas Con, so that was super fun.
Yeah, we had a blast traipsing all over Kansas City together and having adventures. You know, when Rachel and I get together, we always get into antics.
It was so funny. We were trying to find Hallmark headquarters, and we're all walking around, and Jax is like, they have a Starbucks here. Oh, right.
You were cracking me up because you're like, don't you live in New York City? I was like, yes, but I get excited every time.
I like Jax would be like, what? You have a Starbucks?
This little boutique coffee shop.
Yeah. It's so funny. Oh my gosh. Well, I think we were all getting a little nervous as far as And Just Like That, because everything was going under with the transition from HBO Max to Max and canceling everything. And I thought, are they going to cancel And Just Like That? Because I mean, I guess it must have done well enough. We don't know the numbers, but it seemed like it had very mixed reception. So I wouldn't have been surprised if they had announced, oh, we're not going to actually go forward with season 2.
I suspect, and like you said, we don't know the numbers, that it's one of those shows that, yes, very mixed reception, but a lot of people are watching. Yeah. It's like the opposite of like Arrested Development when it came out, where everyone that watched it loved it and it was critically acclaimed, but like a lot of people weren't watching it in the first go around because, I think some people are hate watching this.
Yeah. Including maybe me. Really, these 2 episodes were not strong. We have a lot to talk about. I don't know, a lot of frustration. I mean, we had just finished covering the Carrie Diaries, and that was, I mean, it had its flaws, but that was so strong. And so now to go back to for us, this is like the OG, which is ironic.
Yeah. I mean, the Carrie Diaries was a gosh darn delight.
Yeah. It was really fun.
The acting, the storytelling, like you said, Rachel, it was not without its flaws, but it was some really good storytelling. And of course, same with Sex and the City, and it's so iconic. There's so much cringe in here.
So many things. It's gonna be interesting. Well, let's just dive in. So the first episode is called Met Cute, and it's while Carrie questions whether she's ready for more than a casual fling, Miranda starts to worry her relationship with Shay is only about sex.
I do love the title of this episode.
Yeah. Well, and anything involving the Met was fun.
Yeah.
I would say that felt like Sex in the City. It felt like the old show. I enjoyed that aspect of this episode, but a lot of the other stuff, I mean, we were even texting back and forth like, what is happening?
Yeah, so Rachel and I did not plan to watch this at the same time, and I don't think we were watching it exactly at the same time, but it was close enough for us to be like, hey.
Yeah. And I wish we could have our friend co-host Megan on, because she was also texting me and she was like, what?
Oh, we have to have her on for the next episode or something. Yeah. That'd be great.
We definitely do. And she made the point that there is no point in having Lisa, Naya, and Seema all on this show. They are like complete, like they were all in the first season, but like they weren't all in the same episode all together. And they are redundant. You do not need to have all 3 of these characters. They all fill basically the same character arc and role.
Well, I thought the beginning of this, of like to your point of we're seeing, I guess, is
Especially
it 7
Nia
different?
and Lisa. Like they have
Yes.
the exact same story. Both of them are in like somewhat struggling marriages. They're both, I mean, I guess Nia has particularly infertility, where Lisa has children, but aside from that, they're basically the same characters with the same character arcs. We don't, like in the original Sex and the City, all four were extremely different and provided different character arcs for you to follow. And this, it's just like they're so desperate to make Seema Samantha, which is not happening. That, and then they have these other characters that I don't know, they're just not, they're redundant. They don't need to both be there.
Well, and what I found most curious about it is that the whole appeal of, OG Sex in the City is the core four and us seeing them together. Like, sure, they have their own storylines, but the other ones are usually in it. Everyone feels so splintered off in this. Like, we're just watching Seema. Okay, fine. Now we're just watching Naya. We're just watching Miranda. Like, they're not really interacting even as much as they did in the first season. Mm-hmm. So I think that's another reason why the characters might feel a little redundant, is because every female storyline feels so separate and not tied together at all. Like, they do interact, but a lot of it is over the phone.
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You wonder if they were even like together when they filmed stuff.
Yeah, like I would definitely feel, I think I would feel, I mean, I can't say that because that's not what we saw. I would feel like the characters were less redundant, or like there was like too much going on if they were spending more time together. But
yeah,
this opening scene, Rachel, and this isn't like, I don't consider myself a prude, and like, but it was the whole, like, all these sex scenes to start off. It wasn't even like, oh my gosh, that's too much sex for me. It was like literally everyone was cringe. Like every single, like even Charlotte coming out to Harry, who, we've been Charlotte Harry stan since day one. Everyone made me go like, oh, my skin is crawling.
Yeah, it just wasn't well done. And they acted like we have like tons of nostalgia for these characters like Seema and Lisa, and we don't. And so you're interested in catching up on our main four. And since those have been done so terribly, it just ends up feeling cringe, like you said, like frustrating.
Yeah. Yeah. I really was hoping for, like, I guess I'm realizing my favorite parts of the Sex and the City thing is I like it maybe, 80% city, 20% sex. And it feels like I would have liked to have seen them all in the beginning, walking around.
It's not really sexy if there's no like lead up. If it's just like the beginning, you want that sort of tantalizing kind of a thing. And that's what the show was really good about. And I mean, I had written down that Lisa is lonely and marriage is struggling. Naya is lonely and marriage is struggling. Like they're the exact same. Except one has children and one doesn't.
Yeah.
And so we also have Carrie with this guy, Franklin, and this guy is super hot.
Okay, I was gonna say, like, yeah, right? Like, I was like, oh, this is hotter than a lot of the guys I remember being. And actually, a lot of times on shows, the guys that people think are hot, I'm like, I don't get it. I think he's adorable too.
Yeah, yeah. And let's see, Ivan Hernandez is the name. He's in, let's see here. I guess he was on a little stint in Never Have I Ever. He was on Devious Maids. Yeah, he is super good looking.
We approve of this.
Ho, ho, ho. We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies Patreon.
Do you love Hallmarkies podcast, especially at Christmas?
Do you enjoy the holiday previews, recaps, interviews, and bonus episodes?
If the answer is yes, please consider supporting the Hallmarkies Patreon. We need your help to do what we do both during the Christmas season and all year round.
But not only do you help a podcast led by strong, independent women by becoming a Patreon, you get to become a part of the Hallmarkies family.
Starting at only $2 a month as a patron, you will have access to our Facebook Patreon group where we talk about the movies, shows, and more all year.
We also have many monthly patron watch-alongs with guests like Lacey Chabert, Natalie Hall, Paul Campbell, Mary Lou Henner, and more, giving their behind-the-scenes details of their films.
As a patron, you also have the chance to provide input into the podcast and even join us at different tiers.
So this Christmas season, spread some cheer to the Hallmarkies Patreon and become a member today. You won't regret it.
Go to patreon.com/hallmarkies to learn more.
That's patreon.com/Hallmarkies.
It felt like, what is Carrie, particularly in the next episode, more than this episode, but is she like all of a sudden not like a sex columnist? Like all of a sudden she's like insecure about her relationships and not wanting in the next episode, not wanting to do this promo.
Oh, I have thoughts about that I cannot
like,
wait to get
who
into.
is this Carrie? Like all of a sudden she's like, what? And then we have to talk a lot about what they have done with Miranda. Like I can't not understand. Like if you're wanting to have her be an inclusive, character, empowered character, why is she become like Shay's housefrau? Like what is going on? Like she is all of a sudden this like timid, meek, mousy character who doesn't stand up for herself, and it's just bizarre. Like I guess so she's left Steve for Shay, and she's evidently left Brady. He's gone. We're not talking about him anymore. And
nothing but a text on the phone.
Yeah. And so she's out in Los Angeles doing what? Like, why isn't she a lawyer? Why isn't she working? Why isn't she doing her own things? Like, you think that she would be out there, like, I don't know, like working for a congressman or maybe being a congressman herself. Like the real Cynthia Nixon ran for Congress. Like you could make this character very empowered. Like why would you want your character that's supposedly representing people, representing in this relationship, why would you make her this way? I do not understand, and it does not fit with Miranda as a character at all. I mean, no. In the original series, she was like, she loved the like bold lesbians. What did they call that episode? You know, with like the strong lesbians, she
was
like
amazing.
wanted to be one of them.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So there's no way that in this relationship she would become this person.
It's heartbreaking to see this character, what she's become, because I think that, originally, and we touched on it in another episode, the writers had wanted her to be with Naya. And I think we could have seen all sorts of like intellectually stimulating, passionate, empowering stuff if she was with Naya.
But even that, they chose to have her be like a racist, weird, awkward, strange person with Naya. And again, I guess you could do something interesting with that, but like, it just seems so strange to me. Like you would think that they would go the opposite direction and have her be too much of a girl boss, too much of a, like they, in an attempt to try to make her be this sort of empowered representative character. But instead they chose to make her this kind of submissive, like, I don't know, like literally she doesn't seem like she's interested in like the kinky part that Shay's into, and she's just going along with everything. It's so weird to me. I just can't understand why they, like, I can't understand from the character perspective, and even just from trying to craft a show. Like, again, I would think they would be more tempted to go sort of the opposite cringe route.
Totally.
Yeah.
And you'd be like, okay, we're kind of over that like girl boss era where we never think about resting and all that. Sure.
Yeah.
I think it's also such a missed opportunity to like you're saying, like even find that middle ground of like, oh, she's in LA and she's like, you know what? I'm out of the rat race, but I'm going to consult and then I'm going to enjoy doing all these other things and relax. But it seems like she's bored and submissive. Like you hit it.
That's
Like
what
when
I'm
you said
saying.
Hausfrau, you sent me. Like that's what's happening. And it's so not sexy. And I, for the life of me, can't figure out why either of these people are attracted to each other.
Yeah.
Like I don't get why Che is into Miranda. Like I think Che would be attracted to a totally different type of person. And Miranda, I also think would be attracted to a different type of person. I don't think they fit together at all.
I completely agree. And even in the fashion, they have dressed Miranda so frumpy in these 2 seasons. I mean, there's been a good look. There was a dress I think in here that I liked pretty good, but for the most part, they've had her looking like a Hausfrau. Like, so I just don't understand. Like, I wish that I could ask Cynthia, she'd probably be super offended or whatever, but I would really like to know, like, because she's obviously trying to represent her community I would think she wants to represent it in a like empowering, powerful way, but it's just not coming across the way that I assume she would want it to be.
Yeah, it's also just like, you know, she's not, I know that characters can grow and evolve and they should, but it doesn't feel like this is the same character at all. And if this was Cynthia Nixon playing a character in something else, I'd be like, okay, sure. You know, this is what we're watching, but it doesn't feel like it has any remnants of the old Miranda at all.
Yeah. Like the sensory deprivation tank scene, you have to give it to her because she went for it in her performance, but it was really embarrassing. I was just like, oh, what are they doing? And this is not like Samantha. I guess I could have seen a little bit more, even though we've always said Samantha is not a hippie. She's not like a free love person, but I guess I could have seen her give this a try, you know, with the temperature tank, but like it was just kind of like she was flailing around and I don't know, it just made me sad.
This was for those of you who aren't watching the video, Rachel did look, it was pitiful. She looked so sad. And this was one of those moments where Rachel and I were texting each other the exact same thing at the exact same time about the sensory deprivation tank. And like, can't this woman get a win anywhere? Like, okay, the sensory deprivation tank, she realizes it's all relaxing and she loves it. When she's cleaning up the beach, can that go well? Like, does she suck at everything?
Yeah. And so we see Che, they don't like the wardrobe that they're being given. And I mean, I don't know. I guess this is supposed to sort of endear us to Che. But I don't know. It didn't look any different than what they've been wearing for the entire show. So I just didn't quite understand the problem.
Yeah, like I think we're supposed to think, oh my gosh, how ridiculous. And I was like, that's kind of cool jacket.
Yeah.
Like, sure. And I don't know, but there was something about, and I usually don't think like this or point this out because like as an actor, I almost have the opposite reaction to things. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I see what people are doing. Like I fill in the blanks. I thought the acting in this scene was kind of rough. Like something about it felt off to me. I don't know if it was the writing or the acting, but the whole thing felt stilted or awkward. I don't know.
Pretty much everything with Che I mean, Sarah Mesh is a very quality actress.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
They are good. I've seen them, whether it's stage or screen. I've seen them do a very good job. I don't know. I have to wonder if they're just not giving enough kind of material for them to really build the character, but Che, it seems, comes off as very selfish. And I agree, the acting doesn't feel authentic. to a character. It feels phony.
Yeah, like there's this caricature. I mean, the part that I thought Shay really shined, and I can't remember if it's in this episode or the next episode, when they talk about their vulnerabilities with their tummy hanging over. Sorry, I called it a tummy.
Yeah.
Being around kids. But their stomach hanging over their pants. I was like, oh, this acting's really good. Like I'm seeing really real vulnerability, and it doesn't seem pushed. Everything else seems so pushed.
Yeah.
Agreed. A lot of the acting in this show does, actually.
Yep. So then we have Carrie is going to allow the Jackie and his wife. I couldn't remember what the wife's name is, but we saw them last time, last season. We saw their wedding and the yellow dress.
Yes.
Which was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's going to allow this person to make her dress for the Met Gala. She has tickets to the Met Gala. And this did not make any sense to me at all. Like, if you are designing a dress for somebody, then you take very careful measurements of them. Like, maybe it might be off an inch or two, but this was like 7 inches. Like, it was a lot. She couldn't even put the dress over her head. It was like, it made no sense. Like, that you would, like, literally you measure like every part when you're making a custom dress. I mean, it didn't make any sense. It was stupid.
Yeah, it actually like upset me. I was hoping that, like, because it made her look so incompetent. And I was hoping that, okay, say they want the storyline, which this I actually think totally worked. And it was a good payoff of her ending up going to the Met in her, original wedding dress from the wedding that never happened. Great. Iconic. She looked fabulous. I wish that Carrie would have spilled something on the dress herself. Something, I'm not saying that's like a gold thing, but
I agree that paid off. It was a good moment, but yeah, the convoluted plot that they decided in order to get her to that moment where she's so desperate, she wears this dress, this wedding dress, was totally ridiculous. Like, there's no way that she wouldn't have made those measurements and that it would be that off. I mean, it would never happen. You would never do that in a million years. And so, yeah, exactly. Like, if she had gotten coffee on the dress or something like that.
Sure.
And so then they were scrambling last minute and she's like, oh, I have something. Brilliant. That would have been amazing. And I mean, how did we write this better in literally 30 seconds that we've been talking together?
Like, yes. Like, it was so upsetting. And to see this woman who, like, we want to root for her and have her be like a good designer, to see that she's so incompetent. And that, like you said, Rachel, the measurements, number one, would not have been that off. But I guarantee you that, say in some world they are, it would have been 2 weeks before that we would have known that. Like, there's no way on the day of, that's when you're trying it on for the first time. It makes no sense.
Yeah. The other thing I really didn't care for is that I don't like the tit for tat that we were playing with as far as people getting disinvited and invited to the Met Gala. There is no way that Harry would invite himself to the Met Gala if he knew that she was taking Anthony. Like, Anthony is a longtime friend. He planned their wedding, basically. Like, so it's somebody that he knows and is a friend. I would think Harry's friends with Anthony as well, as Charlotte. And so all Charlotte would have had to say is like, sorry, babe. I didn't think you'd be interested. And so I told Anthony that he could come. Problem solved. Boom. No problem.
Done.
And probably Harry has enough connections that he could probably get an invite. I would think, as a lawyer in New York City, he could probably get an invite on his own if he really wanted to go. And I mean, I'm just guessing. And he never has seemed like a character who would care about that or want to go. Or so the whole like contrivance of well, then so Carrie's going to go with Anthony, but then she ends up dumping him. And I don't know, I just thought that was all frustrating and stupid. It annoyed me.
Totally. And seemed mean spirited. Like, okay,
Yeah.
this is one of those things. Okay, something that did work for me in that the visual of Harry with the top hat, this whole thing, we could have had that and have her be like, oh, I can't.
Yeah.
I thought the other part of that bothered me that, you're saying too, is this so musical chairs of it.
Yeah.
When Seema is then able to go, and instead of saying, oh, I'm already taking Anthony, she calls Anthony and is like, okay, Seema's in, you're out. Are you kidding me? Like, people have feelings. And even though she's like making the joke of like, well, you're a man, so you don't have feelings. This all just seems so superficial and mean-spirited that it's sickening.
It was dumb. Also super annoyed when she's like, my friend Stanford got this kimono for me in Japan. Like, the man is dead. Like, what are you doing? What is the point of that? Why keep Stanford alive in the show when the actors passed away? Like, that's just stupid.
Yeah, that made me sad because it was this thing of like, I wish that, like, I understand it wasn't written into the story last year and we had like a big death with Big anyway. And then you're also dealing with like keeping Miranda in the picture, Miranda,
like, just
Samantha
don't
in the
say
picture.
anything.
Don't
Like,
say
why?
anything.
Yeah, don't say anything. Like, we don't, and then maybe work it in later of, he passed away or something like that. But like, I can understand why they need to have like little references to Samantha every now and then. We know that, that she will appear briefly in one of the episodes. But when you don't even have that option, the actor has passed away. I don't know. I was just like, oh.
Yeah. I mean, look, we're not talking about Steve like at all.
Yeah.
So I think
who's actually alive.
Someone's actually alive. And I think that we can have, like you said, maybe later on something like that feels a little more respectful or like done with more care. But this just felt weird.
Yeah, I was very annoyed. So then we have this scene with Naya. She's like flirting a little bit with this guy at the bar. And then she's like, I got, ring on. And then we see her later on. She wants to get things on with her husband over the phone, but she finds out that he's writing songs with this star in the hotel room. And I feel like this is something that you should probably discuss as a couple before the trip even happens, that, okay, like, you are going to be spending a lot of time with this beautiful woman, beautiful person. What do we as a couple, what are our rules, or what do we expect of each other?
Definitely. Like it was sort of a toss up for me as to what was going on. Cause like I was thinking about the times I've been on tour and was always like, I was on tour with two guys and was always in their hotel rooms. Now, granted, they are gay men, a little different, but I think there was something about the setup of him answering the phone when he was there and like not hiding it at all, that I was like, oh, okay. But also I understand her being like, oh, that's a boundary. Do not be in the hotel room doing it. Even though sometimes on tour, there's not actually a lot of places you can go where you won't disturb people. So like, I think it's a mature conversation could have been had about it. I gave both of them slack for their reactions though.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think the problem is not discussing it ahead of time, that, okay, this is what's going to happen so that you're aware. And then it wouldn't be a problem, like
totally,
like, because every couple is different as far as what they, how open they are to other relationships and other friendships and other, I don't know, every couple is just different. And so you just have to talk about it. And so that was the problem, I think, with that. I think if we were more invested in Nia as a character, and I feel like, again, for somebody that's this professor, knowledgeable, strong, they also haven't made her that strong when it comes to her relationship. And maybe there's something to that we all have sort of a weakness when it comes to relationships, that, but I don't know. She's just not really doing it for me as a character.
Well, something that I wanted to ask you, because I was like, oh, did I miss something? Like, I think I don't understand exactly where her relationship stands, because I feel like she was being encouraged by Miranda to get out there and like flirt with guys and maybe hook up with guys. And then she called him her estranged husband, I think. But then she was like, what are you doing with that woman here? Yeah, I was like, wait, so what are the roles? Have you set them? Like, are you allowed to flirt? Are you allowed to like make out? But like, what are the rules? Like, we don't know what you're trying to operate with now.
Yeah, because then when she's at that bar, and I thought, oh, are we gonna see her hook up with this guy later on? Is she gonna, kind of? Because I could have seen that of like the ending scene, her going and meeting up with him again, but it didn't. So yeah, it is confusing. It's not done very well.
Today's episode of the podcast is sponsored by W Rated, the podcast where we willingly watch the world's worst rated movies. Join me, Daisy,
and me, Claire, as we break down the IMDb Bottom 100, choosing a different film from the list every episode.
We take a deep dive into the plot, production, release, and reviews, usually with a special guest, to uncover if these films are truly as bad as everyone says they are.
You can find us on Spotify, Apple, Good Pods, and anywhere else you find your podcasts.
To get the moment with Che, them being on a diet and being insecure about their body, that was a pretty good moment. And then Miranda saying, "You are the most beautiful person I've ever seen." Again, nice moment. But we're seeing Miranda in just a supplementary role instead of being the leading lady in her own life.
Yeah, exactly. I really liked this scene in terms of, I thought the acting was really solid in it. But yeah, I still don't see them as a couple that I'm rooting for or that I really understand.
So then we have Seema. So she's dating this guy named Zed, and Zed wants her to meet his son, but it's going to be the same day as the Met. So that's when she gets out, and then Carrie's going to go with Anthony. But then she gets really upset when she sees this guy with his ex-wife. Right. And she isn't comfortable with him. Is he living with his ex-wife?
Okay, so yes, and she didn't know that, but he says like, oh, she has the top 2 floors and there's separate entrances. And I'm kind of like, okay, like, I think that's something you should have mentioned a long time ago, but in New York City, separate entrances. And I'm like, oh,
it's like separate apartments. That's not even like living together.
No, exactly. Yeah. So I kind of, and again, because to your point, Rachel, because we don't really have a lot of time to delve into any of these characters, we find it confusing to be like, well, wait, where do things stand with this person? I don't know what's going on exactly. We don't get enough of anything.
Yeah, it was weird. And then Carrie just dumps Anthony.
Yep.
It was strange. And then we have a whole plot in this episode with Lily playing the piano, and she wants to play she wants to get an electronic keyboard. And isn't this one? It's the next one where she sells this clothes. Yeah, next one where she sells the clothes. But yeah, so she plays the piano, and then we have Lily and Rock getting Charlotte in the corset.
That was pretty funny. Yeah,
so that was fun. And then Lisa has a pretty, I think, Met Gala worthy dress.
I loved this.
In red with like a headpiece, a large headpiece, red. It was like a nest kind of. I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah, no, it was like a nest, and I think that the theme was like thinly veiled or something, so that worked.
And I feel like you would have ordered a car,
Yes.
like not just an Uber, you would have like a car.
100%.
And I am
Yeah.
sure someone like Lisa has a car service.
Oh, absolutely. That you could call at the 100%.
Yeah, like a
100%.
regular that they use,
Mhm.
daily. I'm sure that her and her husband have a car service, but they like really stretched it to they couldn't find a cab, so they end up walking.
I do to say this had a payoff for me though, because that scene where he's like holding her dress as she walks, and
Yeah.
that worked for me in the sense that I'm like, okay, well that's worth that, and it is only $10.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, which in New York, that's not that long.
No.
And so then Charlotte invites Anthony, and Harry seemed like fine with it.
Yeah, because I guess Harry's like, oh, I can't go on the steps and meet Rihanna.
Yeah, he really wanted to. He's a big Rihanna fan.
Yeah. Did you also notice that both Harry and Charlotte pronounce it Rihanna?
Yeah, that was strange. I was like,
No.
am I saying it wrong?
I know that's I love that we both questioned ourselves.
Like, I don't know. What do I know?
Like, I'm not positive, but I don't think that's right.
I think never
I
mind.
think we're right. Like,
Yeah.
or maybe but what I'm curious about is, was that a choice or was it just the way they said it?
Yeah, that was really interesting.
Yeah, it sure was.
And then that's when Carrie wears the wedding dress with the cape that the designer had done, which of course had just happened to perfectly match her headpiece, for the wedding dress. And she says, just like that, I repurposed my pain, which was a good ending.
It was a great ending. I do love, I think because I am quite nostalgic for, OG Sex in the City, getting to see this actual dress, the repurpose, the pain. It feels like the end of a Sex in the City episode. Like the end definitely worked for me where a lot of other things didn't.
Agreed. Yeah, I would give this episode a 4 out of 10.
I'm going to go ahead and give it a 5, just right down the middle. Yeah. Not a strong opening.
No. Then we have the real deal, which is Carrie struggles with a podcast ad script. Charlotte tries to retrieve Lily's designer clothes, and chaos ensues when Miranda loses her phone. So what did you think of this episode in comparison to the first episode?
Like, just a lot of like frustrations in this one too. Like, characters either behaving not like themselves, like Carrie and Miranda, or Charlotte being the most Charlotte cringe that she hasn't learned from anything.
She had by far the best, I would say, out of these 2 episodes, though. The whole thing with her trying to get Lily's clothes back was probably my favorite plot line of like anything that we saw here.
I agree. I think it's like a little bit like, oh, hasn't Charlotte learned? But also, okay, like this is part of the fun Charlotte that we do know and love.
Yeah.
And it's not like, oh my gosh, where did this character come from? It is on brand for her.
Yeah. So what is happening with Carrie? Like, there is no way that she would refuse to do these promos. Like, it just doesn't make any sense.
Rachel, this was, I think both of us as podcasters, this was infuriating. This would be like, RIP Hallmark Publishing, but getting a thing with them like you wonderfully did, and being like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like it fits so well with her.
Especially
branding.
this supposed like new iteration of the podcast where it's supposed to be like really edgy and they're like telling all these like scandalous stories and blah, blah, blah. It's so cringe. The podcast is the worst on this show. It's absolutely awful. And why do you have Ali Stroker in this show for her to just be like the, I guess, supposed naggy boss? Like, she's so talented. Why on earth wouldn't you have her have like an actual story? And like, it's so weird. So weird.
I mean, first of all, yeah, she's incredible. Like she's a great musical theater actor and she's also great in Only Murders in the Building. I
Yeah.
also like didn't like that it's like you said, like this naggy boss, like she's the villain rather than her asking Carrie to do something perfectly reasonable.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, there's really like no way that this one promo would cause the entire podcast to be like, I mean,
Entire like network
what?
of podcasts.
I mean, talk about people who know nothing. I mean, in the first season, it was obvious they knew nothing about podcasts and what a podcast is and how they work. And like, it was like some weird combination of call-in show and a like radio show and kind of a podcast, but not really. Like nobody would want to listen to this thing. And so now it's like Sex in the City. And it would be like completely understandable that this deodorant, I think it was, product that they would want to advertise on this evidently successful Sex in the City podcast. And for her to not, that, I mean, this is the person who was literally in the naked dress on a bus.
Yes.
You're going to tell me that she's not going to want to talk about a down there product? Like what?
Also, like it's utterly ridiculous of being like, okay, Carrie, step back for this a little. Like this actually sounds like a product that might be useful to your readers. Like get over yourself. Like what are we even like? It's on brand.
It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense. And also the fact, the way the whole deal crashed and burned, she actually she was being difficult about it, but it seemed like she was going to do it. So it's not even like you'd have to, like you said, they don't understand podcasting. You'd have to like refuse to do the ad copy and like turn down the deal. But it didn't seem like she had done that. But then all of a sudden it all fell apart.
Yeah. Well, and also they could certainly have somebody else do the ad read if it was really so offensive to Carrie. They could have an actress do it. They could have, I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, I'm sure that Jackie, that the other co-host guy, he could, I mean, I guess not this particular product, but like anybody that's any female could do this ad read.
But actually, to your point, Jackie could have done it because Ali Stoker's character was like, oh, the guy from whatever podcast, talked about his wife using it and like threw her. Yeah. And I totally like you make it work.
Yeah. And I mean, and Alex is so talented. Like it's frustrating to see her just be this like a nag, and she did fine. Like there was nothing she could do, just not on the paper there. But then we have Seema. There's this whole plot with her and her hairdresser, and the hairdresser is given all kinds of opinion, and it's like, yeah, that's what this person. I mean, you've known him for so long. It just seemed strange to me that she's just like, you're you need to blow me, not shrink me.
Yes. Well, you know what, Rachel? It's like they got one good line and they had to figure out.
Yeah. And that's so much of this show.
Yes.
So much of this show. It's like, okay, we want her to be wearing the wedding dress. So we got to twist it all around. And if you're listening, bring us in.
Please. You need us.
We have experience. We could help. We really could.
We really could, because I think we intimately understand what people liked about the OG Sex in the City. And we can so clearly see what they're trying to do and then get all mixed up.
Yeah. So then we have Lisa. She is struggling because her mother-in-law. It was
mother-in-law. Yeah.
It was mother-in-law. Mother-in-law is coming, and the mother-in-law is difficult, very demanding. Her husband can't get a cab, and that was, I mean, it's so hard to get a cab in New York City.
Yeah.
It's really tough.
Yeah. Like I thought that was interesting in the sense that, like, as a white person, like I'm never going to experience racism. Like of course, like I can't know what that's like. I think why it's an interesting way to showcase it is because when you live on like I guess they live on Fifth Ave or Park Ave or somewhere really fancy there, oftentimes your doorman will hail the car.
Yeah, that's what I was actually going to joke and say. The only time I've successfully hailed a cab in New York City is when I had the doorman.
Yes, that's very common when you're staying at a ritzy place like you were. Like that's the thing. So like I was a little bit. I want to make it really clear. I'm not saying that like racism obviously absolutely exists, and it does even exist for very wealthy Black people. Of course, racism exists, but usually the doorman would be the one to hail the cab, and usually they're able to get one on a street like that very quickly.
But it was an interesting thing I don't know exactly what they were trying to say with this mother-in-law character, because she was like pretty racist herself. I mean, she said, didn't the Emancipation Proclamation free us from head wraps?
That
what?
That is so bad.
I was like, whoa.
Well, that absolutely. And then what we don't see, we don't see her say anything, but the little girl is wearing her beautiful natural hair, and they're like, we have to fix it because grandma won't like that. And that's its own thing too, of like, well, Black women and Black little girls should be able to wear their hair natural.
Like, yeah. And then we have Miranda at AA, which I thought was really random, because we had in season 1, we had a brief mention of her and stealing the alcohol bottles and other things like that. And then it was just dropped and we never heard about it again for like the whole rest of the season. And so I guess now she's in AA.
I thought of you immediately when this came on, because I remember you being like, I guess we just dropped that whole plot line. And I was like, yeah, what happened to that? And then I was like, oh, I guess here it is. But we all kind of forgot about it anyway.
Yeah.
Because the thing with that was the way I did the mental gymnastics around them forgetting about that plot line. I was like, oh, she's someone who was going through a really tough time and turned to like alcohol abuse. But then when she like figured out other ways to deal with it, like both with her marriage and sexuality, like that sort of passed or whatever. But I was surprised that she's in AA. Like they kind of dropped it in out of nowhere after not talking about it for a very long time.
Yeah. And then we have Naya. She gets super offended when her husband suggests that they use a surrogate. And I wasn't really sure why that was so offensive to her.
No, I didn't get it either. I can understand how it might be jarring or like difficult to hear, but it's like she was really ticked. And I really can imagine being like, okay, that's a lot for me to take in and process. I'm not sure I want that, but like, okay, like let's talk about this, But it was like she was so mad.
Yeah.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, Hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies.
It's like she's looking for reasons to be mad at her husband.
Yeah.
And then we have Tony Danza introduced, which this did feel very Sex and the City to me.
Yes.
Like having a popular actor come in for a couple episodes. I mean, I kind of wish they had done something a little bit sexier with him,
Totally.
But I guess it just doesn't work into the Che and Miranda storyline that well. But it was fun. He was fun.
It was fun. He's a really charming actor. I've seen him twice in New York, and he's always been like pleasant to everyone around him. Like people were coming up to him and he was always so nice.
Yeah.
And there's something really charming about it. I think I was a little bit confused by their dinner and about why Che, like I initially understand why Che was so upset of thinking he was going to play someone who was Mexican. Like that feels wrong. But then him being like, oh, hey, maybe we can change the story a little bit so this works. I don't know. Something about it. I was like, well, what did you think was going to happen?
Well, he's the one that's concerned about it. He says, I don't want to play a Mexican. Like, I don't feel comfortable with that. I'm Italian. I don't feel comfortable playing a Mexican, which makes sense. I understand that. Yeah. And then Che, I guess, isn't comfortable playing an Italian. Is upset about that.
Okay. So here's what I took from that and made me be like, oh, there's a little bit of like diva going on. Yes, Tony Danza is not comfortable playing a Mexican. I understand that. And he's like, not only does he feel weird about that, he's like, I'm going to get backlash for it. I already have. Okay, sure. Get that. I know that I know that Che, that they are Irish Mexican. Okay. But I do feel like it would be okay for them to play an Italian Mexican. So that,
agreed.
Right? Am I wrong?
That's what I was just going to say.
Yeah.
Because there's no reason why their mother in the show couldn't be Mexican.
Right.
And then that wouldn't, I would think that they would want the casting to be authentic as possible.
Totally. And apparently
and I think that European is like, you can mix those as opposed to mixing Mexican and Italian. That's like totally different continents.
Totally. And I think that there was also something Tony Danza said. I'm not sure if I misunderstood it, but talking about the woman who was playing the Mexican grandma, how she was getting a lot of good like reviews, or I don't know what was going on like in the table read, or I don't know if they were testing her, how it was going. So it's like, wait, you're going to have authentic Mexican representation in your grandma. And then you can have him as the Italian dad. Also, like I say this as like my family, like we have Irish heritage and I have a lot of friends who have Italian heritage, and there's so many similarities in that pocket there of like, love food, love this, like these kinds of, some are stereotypes, but some are just true.
Yeah. Well, and also he could just be American.
Sure. Yeah.
Like he doesn't necessarily have to be an ethnic stereotype. Like he could just be a blend.
It seems to me like Che has no sense of like what collaboration on a project is.
Yeah.
Like even the writer, who I actually really loved that character, the writer is saying to Che like, oh, I thought this, no, I get why you might not want the blue streak in your hair. But the writer is trying to bring stuff that the writer wants in as well. And Che's like, well, that's not me. Well, yeah, no crap, it's not you. You're playing a version of yourself.
Yeah.
Like that's how this goes. A role. Like you might be playing Che, because a lot of these comedians, like when they get a show, they're playing themselves, but they're playing a version of themselves.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I bet you Seinfeld is pretty close.
Yeah.
To like that character, because I don't think he's like the greatest actor. Like he's basically playing himself, but not exactly. Like he's not exactly him.
Yeah, I felt like this was just like, it's another one of those things, Rachel, like you said, they don't get podcasting. It felt like, oh, they don't get
making a pilot.
No,
not at all. And this show does not look funny. It isn't. My guess is probably Tony Danza would be the funniest part. And the best laugh was when it was funny when Miranda says, "You're the boss."
Yeah, that was great.
That was funny. But it would have been interesting if, I don't know, they just done something kind of sexy and interesting with Tony Danza. Like, what if Miranda found herself being attracted to him? and she didn't know what to do with
Mhm.
it
Oh, I love that.
because
I love
she's in
that.
this committed relationship. She's not gonna get out of the committed relationship,
Mhm.
but yet she still is like, oh, he's really attractive. Or what if that he was her hall pass or something like that? Like that was
Totally.
just that could be funny.
And that maybe Che even thought it was funny, like, oh, you're gonna hook up with my TV dad. Like there
Yeah,
could have
yeah,
been
that
some
could have
funny
been.
stuff in there.
Yeah, again, how are we rewriting this better in 30 seconds? Like, what?
Hire us. And just like that, Max.
Yes. um. So then we have Seema makes up with the hairdresser, and Naya, she's like ranting about Andre. She's very upset. And then Charlotte goes to try to get the clothes, and that was fun. That reminded me of old school Charlotte, with things like I don't know, when she would get really frustrated. Kind of had that frustration with Samantha vibes to it to me. That was fun.
I love that too, because I love that we got to see Charlotte being Charlotte with Carrie being Carrie, being like, oh, these boots. Can I get
Yeah.
these boots?
That was
Like
fun.
that was adorable,
Yeah,
really
yeah.
fun, very OG Sex and the City vibes.
Yeah. And I can understand when she's talking about how she feels like Lily's rejecting her, because she's already had to adapt to Rock,
Yeah.
being this different person than what she thought
Yeah.
originally. And so to have now her other daughter is seemingly rejecting her, I can understand that. I also think though that there's got to be a side of her that's like, oh, she made it happen. She wanted
That's
the
what I
piano. I
thought.
gave her the rules. She made it happen. And it did make me think of my brother when he was in high school. He would sell everything, and including his clothes. And my mom would just be like, you can't do that. Like, we pay for them. They're not really like yours to sell, like
He's
but
like, but I'm an entrepreneur.
like I vividly remember one time he had a hat of something, and one of his friends was like, oh, it's a cool hat. He's like, you want
to buy it?
so, and one time my brother, they did this hiking with Boy Scouts or whatever up to a pretty high mountain where there was snow, and he brought a snow cone syrup with him on the hike so that he could sell snow cones to his friends.
Love that.
This was my brother. Another time, my brother, he saw that the band people were selling candy bars, and he was like, what? I need in on this. And even though they were doing it for a fundraiser, he went to Costco, bought a whole bunch of candy bars, and sold them in school.
He was doing it for a fundraiser too. It was going in his pocket. Like that's a fundraiser.
And so that was my brother.
I love that. I love that entrepreneurial energy of just like, how can I make it happen?
Yeah. So Lily was pretty fun.
And she's a great musician.
Yeah. And so then we have Miranda. She loses her phone at the beach. She's trying to clean up at the beach and she can't find it. So she doesn't know Che's phone number. And how do you feel about this? Do you know Alex's phone number?
No. Like I could guess at it. Like,
yeah,
I could guess at it, but I know the ones that I knew, like my brother, or not. I know I don't know my brother and my sister, actually. I know my mom and my dad and my grandma's number, because those are the ones I would push in before you really like kept track of contacts. Like, which numbers do you know by heart?
My dad and my mom.
Yeah.
Because they've had theirs for so long.
Yeah.
Those are the only two that I know.
Sorry, that's what we got. We know our parents' numbers by heart.
Yeah. I mean, so I can, it tracks. This tracks that she doesn't know the number. So she gets like a surfer guy to use their phone. She calls Carrie. Carrie calls Che. And then Che calls her ex-husband, Lyle, they are technically, I guess, still married. They, but I don't know. This seems extremely unlikely that Che wouldn't have told Miranda about this guy. That she would have no idea that he even existed. Like, that seems very unlikely to me.
Especially because they're like cool with each other.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know? Like
Mhm.
this wasn't someone who lives in Europe and then showed up unexpectedly and you're like, oh, it's like, no, this is my like ex-husband who I'm still friends with. There's no reason that she wouldn't mention that when they're
Yeah.
all living so close together. And she sent him, that's the closest person to you that you, I guess he lives in that area. So that makes sense. But it just,
Yeah, but they live there too. So
yeah,
it doesn't make sense that maybe they're not like hanging out together, but it doesn't make sense that Miranda would have no idea this person even existed.
no, not at all.
Yeah. So that was dumb.
Yeah. He's kind of cute though.
Yeah, he was very attractive. And so we have Zed wants a partnership with Seema. He offers this it's like a investment, and she's like, no, that's dumb. So she dumps him, which I agree, that is, very suspect.
Yeah, he totally seems suspect. Like I wasn't getting a lot from him anyway. Like who cares? Bye.
No. And then Carrie finds out that all the shows are canceled because she won't do this ad, and that the whole thing is being sold to Apple, which makes no sense. Like, if it's going under, why would Apple be interested in this? Like,
It's, again, people who have no idea about podcasting, or they know but they don't care to get it right.
Yeah. Well, and so then Franklin tells Carrie, I want more than a Thursday thing. I was like, oh, that's too bad, because he was very attractive.
I respected, yes, very attractive. I respected both of them, like respecting each other's boundaries though. Like he's like, I don't want to be your Thursday booty call anymore. And she's like, well, I don't want more, like they both voiced what they wanted. But I mean, I can understand not wanting to get serious, but I mean, he was more than just a booty call.
Yeah.
Like I know she's not ready for it, but like, I sort of was kind of like,
It makes me nervous though, because I feel like we are going to be getting another round of Carrie and Aiden and Carrie not wanting. We're going to get the same story that we've gotten over and over again.
Yeah, we have gotten it a lot.
It's like very prosaic.
Yes. Yeah. We've gotten this story a lot of times, and you're right. That's what's about to happen. When do you think it'll happen though? Like when in the season? How many episodes are we getting?
Let me check.
Yeah.
I'm guessing 10 episodes, but let's see here. 11 episodes.
Okay.
They don't have any titles or anything like that on IMDb, but I'm guessing that they're gonna wait a while. Maybe 7.
Yeah.
Episode 7 is my guess.
Yeah.
Of when they're gonna introduce Aiden. And it's gonna be super cringe. Just get ready, folks.
Get ready, everybody. We're here with you.
It's not gonna be good. I'm sorry.
I do love John Corbett though, so like I am excited to see him.
Oh yeah, absolutely wonderful. And I'm excited about Big Greek Wedding 3, even though I hated the second one.
Yeah.
I'm excited about the third one. And he's actually in a really good faith-based film called All Saints.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's one of the best. It actually has like 95% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh
it's
my
like
gosh.
one of the hidden gems of faith-based films. He plays this pastor who decides to start this farm on the church.
Yeah.
So that there's a lot of immigrants where he's at, Laotian and Hmong immigrants.
Wow.
And so he starts this farm and everything goes wrong. I mean, that's why it's better than most faith-based films, because his faith is really tested.
It's a real test rather than just
Yeah.
little teeny tiny. Yeah.
Yeah. And so he really has to decide what he believes in. It's a good one. I like it.
It's called All Saints.
All Saints.
Okay.
Yeah. It's good. It's a good one. Maybe the best. That, and I Can Only Imagine.
I need to watch that too.
That was
I've
really
heard that's
good.
great.
But I can only imagine has the fatal flaw of they have the like 35-year-old actor in playing the high school role at the beginning.
I do that. It's like, what?
It's got like full beard and is really bad. But but other than that, it's great. But yeah, this episode, I don't know. I like the Tony Danza stuff. I like Lily and Charlotte. That was fun. So I go a little bit higher. Like 4.5 out of 10.
Yeah. I feel like for me, I really like the Tony Danza and Lily stuff too. So
Mhm.
it also gets a little higher for me. I would say I would do a 5.5.
Yeah. So let us know what you think of these episodes. Maybe hopefully you liked them better than we did. We'd love to
I
hear
don't
your
think so.
thoughts
Like I
in the
feel like we're not
comments.
like Rachel and I just don't tear things down to tear things down like ever.
Yeah.
So, but I'd be curious. Let's see.
Yeah, let us know. We want to hear in the comment section or on Twitter. And we have City Girls Pod on Twitter. You can follow us there, and also the Hallmarkies podcast. And Jax, where can people find you?
At Jacqueline C Tweets on Twitter and Jacqueline Collier on Instagram.
Great. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. Check that out. We'll have a playlist of all the City Girls Pod episodes. Like I said, we covered all of Carrie Diaries, and then we also did the all the Sex and the City and the movies, including the recap for New Year's with Greg McBride. That was so much fun.
Love
the first
him.
movie. And the recap on the second movie, people like disasters. People like talking about messes because
True.
that's done super well. We really enjoy that.
We love a hot mess, don't
Yeah,
we?
we love a hot mess. So yeah, let us know what you think, and check out the Patreon and merch store. We have some really fun Patreon things coming up, including we have Sean Picconcino, the director of Holiday Harmony, for our next watch along, and that's next week. And then in July, we have Mercedes de la Zerda coming on for Well Suited for Christmas, which was so good. So check that out. All the information in the description. And then the merch store, we have some City Girls Pod merch. So check that out. And thanks so much, everybody. We'll be back in 2 weeks, and we'll talk to y'all later. Bye.